The curiosity, the thing that comes to mind, you think about, the Smackover area, a lot of existing oil and gas production there and existing oil and
Yeah.
gas leases,
Yeah.
many of which are very old, just
Yeah.
standard oil, gas, and other minerals.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I could see where if you've got an eighth royalty oil, gas, and other minerals lease through, I don't know, Carthage Field, just as an example,
Yeah.
that's generally the part of the world.
Yeah.
Um, is the I guess, are we leaning toward the thought that, hey, that oil and gas lease is going to cover lithium if legislature deems it's a mineral estate?
Hmm.
Um, I mean, would that basically eliminate the viability of big swaths of the potential extraction area because of the economics of this existing lease that's an eighth or a quarter or 20%? Is that
Yeah. Yeah, Brent, I think that's a real possibility. I think a legislature should be careful, and I say this with oil and gas companies as clients, right? I think the legislature should be careful of giving the oil and gas industry a windfall in their by saying their oil and gas leases covered um, a lease of lithium. We've had issues where we say, okay, does this oil and gas lease cover this substance? And in fact, we had this weird case. When produced water started to become so valuable in West Texas for lots of reasons, primarily because we all discovered that you could recycle produced water and use it in drilling and completions and sell it back as fresh water. There were some folks that went and took quote unquote produced water leases and then sued the operator saying, hey, that produced water that you're taking away is actually mine. It came up the well bore, but with your oil and gas, but it's still mine. So there was a case called Cactus Water, appropriately named for a water dispute in West Texas, where the issue was, did the lease of oil and gas also include produced water? And the answer at the Court of Appeals, at least so far, has been yes, it did. And it was because we defined oil and gas waste in an ancillary statute to include salt water produced up the wellbore. And I have a few issues with that case, quite honestly. So I think they're taking it up to the Supreme Court right now. I think the Supreme Court is probably going to take it because it's a pretty sexy topic, and we may see that topic change a little bit. I hope that through legislation, we can kind of separate lithium from what was leased under oil, gas, and other minerals. But that being said, I was doing a title review the other day in West Texas, and I was looking on behalf of a company that was taking leases for the purpose of producing lithium brine. One of the weird clauses said everything that is, this lease also includes everything that is not oil and gas, and then goes on to list what was essentially the entire periodic
table?
And so you look down and it was, I can't remember, it was like a 1943 lease. And you're like, this guy put this lease together back in 1943. And almost 100 years later, that lease is about to get the windfall of potential lithium production. So then your analysis of how to acquire the rights to produce the lithium looks a lot different, especially if it was a fee owner making that lease at the time, right? Because then you have no issues about whether it was severed from the surface or the mineral estate. And so your agreement to produce lithium looks a lot like a farm out, more than it does a straight up lease of the substance.
Yeah. Well, that's what's going to be curious. You've got major players that own leasehold rights, throughout Texas, oil and gas players, right? And they're not stupid.
Well,
Just as much as the mineral owner lobby in Texas is going to be pushing for that, I would imagine that, the big players on the operating side are going to have a bone to pick too, and an argument.
Yeah. Texoga, TIPRO, all of those organizations will have a big voice in what happens in the legislature this next round. I mean, we've probably all seen the press release that talks about Exxon moving into Southwest Arkansas and taking a several thousand acre position in Southwest Arkansas for the purpose of acquiring brine. I believe Tetra is the other player in Southwest Arkansas that entered. I think maybe they entered into a JVA with Exxon about processing the water that Exxon's going to produce. And I think it's just a matter of time. Right now, we haven't had the big boys move into Texas. And I think the impediment, there is any call to action here about what we do as an industry. I think the impediment is that we need to sort out the title issues so that we can allow the industry to flourish. And once we sort out the title issues, guys, it'll look like a California gold rush. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. I know a bunch of landmen are hoping that'll happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.